Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this ODR knowledge sharing session titled The Importance and Impact of ODR on Tech Startups. Now, before we begin, please be advised that this session is being streamed live on Facebook, and the link will be sent to all participants to view at a later time. Now, I would like to introduce our guest speaker to provide us with some insight on this session, Mubarak Nurudeen. Mubarak is a lawyer and dispute resolution expert with a strong focus on online dispute resolution. He is currently an associate in the legal business services team at a Big Four in New York, where he helps businesses navigate complex legal and contractual matters. Before moving to the US, Mubarak was an associate at Babalaki & Co., one of Nigeria's top dispute resolution law firms. He earned his law degree in 2019 and later obtained an LLM in corporate law from the Ohio State University in the US, where he was recognized as the most outstanding LLM student. With experience in developing ODR frameworks and speaking at global conferences, Mubarak is dedicated to making dispute resolution more efficient and accessible, particularly for tech startups and cross-border trade. Now, I would like to hand over the mic to our guest speaker, Mubarak.
Thank you so much for the introduction. It's indeed a pleasure to be with you this afternoon to present at this knowledge sharing section. Yeah, maybe I should just enter this caveat before I begin my presentation. I'm still a very young researcher in this field. I know, yeah, because I see people like Mrs. Obifaride here. So just to put it out there, whatever I say this afternoon is subject to criticisms. It's just based on the research I've been able to conduct so far or in the past couple of years. Maybe also before I delve into the presentation, I think it's just good that I talk briefly about my background and how I eventually ventured into ODR. ODR was never something I was very keen about when I was in Nigeria. My journey in ODR started in the course of my LLM program at the Ohio State University. If you know Ohio State University, you would know that Ohio State University is very big on dispute resolution. Currently, it's ranked as the #1 dispute resolution law faculty here in the United States. So at the college, I met a couple of professors who are actually big on ODR. I'm sure Mrs. Obifai, they will know a couple of them, people like Professor Ebi Schmidt. So they coached me to become who I am today within the ODR community. So I say a very big thank you to them, even though they are not here. So yeah, that's just a bit about my background and how I eventually ventured into the ODR space. So I don't know if I can share my screen. Do I have the access to do that?
Yes. Yes, you can, please.
Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. Yes,
okay.
We can.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. So we are talking about the importance and impact of ODR for tech startups. I prepared this very brief slide just so we can have something to speak to in the course of our conversation. I would want this to be as interactive as much as possible. I don't want it to be a one-way discussion. You can interject when the need be. You can also ask questions in the course of the presentation. We don't necessarily have to wait till the completion of my presentations before we ask questions. So my presentation, I have a couple of outline here. We have the introduction, the conceptualization of the key terms, why ODR matters for tech startups, understanding ODR proper itself and how it works, and also the common disputes faced by some tech startups. And we are also going to look at a few real-world examples of some startups that are already utilizing ODR platforms for resolution of disputes. So let's start. So for the conceptualization of key terms, it is important for us to know that the growth of technology in recent years has been quite fast-paced. And the growth is actually expected to continue given the fact that the introduction of one technology stimulates the creation of another, right? And then when these technology are being created, there is a need for dispute resolution frameworks that will match up with these technologies. We'll discover that some of the traditional method of dispute resolution may not necessarily work, may not necessarily be a good fit for resolution of disputes involving these emerging technologies. And as such, there is a need for a new legal framework that would be at par with the kind of dispute that this introduction of technologies tend to bring about. Now, this is where ODR comes in. ODR as a tool gives us that leeway for the resolution of disputes that these technologies bring forth. So before I proceed, I think we should conceptualize the key terms that we have. We have online dispute resolution, mediation, arbitration, AI-powered dispute resolution, and in fact, smart contracts. When we talk about online dispute resolution, or ODR, so to speak, it is actually a bit difficult to box ODR into a single definition. But there is one thing that is generally accepted among scholars. ODR involves online resolution of disputes, disputes that do not involve our conventional court systems, right? Usually when we have disputes, we have parties, usually it's between two parties and a third independent arbiter who helps party resolve the disputes. That's the conventional method of dispute resolution that we know. But in ODR, we have four parties basically. We have the two disputants, the independent arbiter, and the ODR tool or platform that is being utilized. So the ODR platform is in fact the fourth party in a dispute that ODR is being utilized for its resolution. So if I'm to put ODR into concept, I would say ODR involves resolution of disputes with technology. That's just the simplest way to define ODR, resolution of disputes involving technology. Now, when we talk about mediation or arbitration or negotiation, those we know are ADRs. They are ADRs, alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. But ODR actually encompasses all the alternative methods of dispute resolution. It also includes the traditional method of dispute resolution. Because when we look at ODR in recent times, maybe ODR, when it first emerged, it emerged as only including the ADRs, the alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. But in recent times, and with the advent of COVID-19 pandemic in the past couple of years, we've seen that courts, traditional court systems, are now also tilting towards utilizing technology for the resolution of disputes. It is not all the time that disputants now sit in court for the resolution of their disputes. We also have courts that are now beginning to include online hearings in their civil procedure rules. I know, as a matter of fact, that Lagos, where a lot of us are here this afternoon, have incorporated online hearing into our civil procedural rules. So that is to show that ODR has gone beyond just ADR. It has also incorporated the traditional method of dispute resolution within its scope. Now, why does ODR matter for tech startups? Why does it matter for tech startups? We know that ODR comes with certain features. It comes with certain things that makes it very good, or that makes it the best method of dispute resolution for tech startups. For instance, ODR comes with innovation and efficiency. One thing that tech startups do not joke with is speed and efficiency, because tech startups are basically just growing. They do not have the bulk of the time. They don't have the resource to waste yet. And so when they are bound with dispute, or when they are faced with dispute, so to speak, they need a platform that affords them that opportunity to settle their dispute very swiftly. And when we look at most of our conventional courts are saddled with backlog of cases, all sort of cases. We have cases taking so many years in some of our courts. And so given the fact that tech startups need that platform that will afford them the efficiency and the speed that is needed for their business, ODR comes as a way of rescue or support for them to speedily resolve their disputes. Also, ODR is not time consuming. As I said earlier, most of our conventional courts are saddled with a lot of cases. We have our, when we attend some of our courts, we will see that the cost list in some of our courts are so large, are so bogus on a daily basis. And ODR provides that leeway for tech startups to be able to speedily resolve their dispute. It is also cost effective, although this is subject to debate because many people have argued that many of these methods of alternative dispute resolution are in fact very expensive and they're not cheap as we make it to seem sometimes. But when we still consider at a comparative level, we consider the costs given the number of years that we spend in some of our courts sometimes and the speediness that comes with ODR or resolution of our dispute with ODR, we'll be able to see that this ODR platform are more cost effective than some of our conventional courts. Now, let us understand what exactly is ODR. I've talked briefly about this earlier, but maybe it is just good to talk about it again. I said earlier that ODR has gone beyond the scope of ADR because initially when ODR started, ODR was basically synonymous to ADR that is online based. But now ODR has encapsulated or incorporated within its scope traditional or the conventional method of dispute resolution, such that the courts have now included this method of dispute resolution within their scope. I said earlier also that most courts are now beginning to include ODR within their civil procedural rules. And also here in the United States, we have a lot of courts that are now incorporating the ODR into their civil procedural rules. So understanding the ODR, we said that it's a digital method of resolving disputes using technology. I said that earlier. It combines negotiation, mediation, and arbitration. It also dispenses with physical presence or in-person meetings. The way we are meeting right here now is the way disputes are usually being resolved through ODR. We don't have to be physically present to resolve disputes via ODR. We can sit here in New York and someone else sits in China, the third party sits in Nigeria, and then we are able to resolve our dispute amicably. We don't necessarily have to geolocate before we resolve some of our disputes. As we would see with most of our conventional method of dispute resolution, parties have to be physically present before disputes can be resolved. So this is one advantage of ODR for tech startups, given the fact that they are just developing and then they don't necessarily have so much resources yet to waste or so much resources to put out there for resolution of disputes that could easily be resolved for the comfort of their own. So when tech startups enter into contracts or enter into international contract or intercontinental contracts with organizations, for instance, an organization or a tech startup in Nigeria enters into a contract or an agreement with an organization that is based in China, the tech startup does not necessarily have to submit itself to the jurisdiction of the Chinese courts to resolve the dispute. Such disputes can easily be resolved from the comfort of the founder's home in Lagos. So this is one advantage of ODR, and this is what one opportunity that ODR presents for tech startups. I list here some ODR platforms that have over the years been utilized by some businesses. We have the likes of Modria. Modria is also a US-based ODR platform, although it was acquired by Tyler Technologies, I think in 2017. Modria is owned by one of the leading ODR practitioners here in the US. So it's one platform basically used by businesses for the resolution of their disputes. They resolve disputes that range from child custody and simple contracts. So when you have cases involving simple contracts, cases that will ordinarily go to court and join the backlog of cases that already exist in those courts, you can easily initiate a claim on this platform, on Modria, for instance. You can easily initiate a claim. The platform would serve the other party. They assign the court, they assign the claim to an independent arbiter who then awards a binding judgment that can be enforced in court. So this is one advantage of platforms like Modria. Also, we have the eBay Resolution Center. eBay Resolution Center, coincidentally, was actually established for eBay by the same person who eventually established Modria earlier in 2014, before it was eventually acquired by Tyler in 2017. So he helped eBay set up that platform that has been used to settle a lot of commercial disputes. And now we have a lot of consumer C2C contracts that are now being, C2C disputes that are now being resolved via this platform. So how does ODR work? How does ODR work? That is the question that we ask ourselves. How does it work? Typically, it begins with one party submitting a complaint or a claim through the ODR platform. So when a party has decided what ODR platform to use, then the party typically submits a claim. For instance, you've decided to submit your claim to Modria, right? Then you can easily submit a claim on this platform. What are your grounds against the other party? What is your complaint against the other party? When you submit this claim to the platform, then the platform intimates or informs the other party. They inform the other party about the existence of the complaint against the other party. Then the other party can decide to submit itself to the jurisdiction of the ODR platform. Once the other party decides to submit itself to the jurisdiction of the ODR platform, then that claim is assigned to an independent arbiter. Once that claim is assigned to an independent arbiter, then hearings will begin. Basically, hearing as is typical in our conventional court. And as I said earlier, the hearings are usually online based. They are done with utilizing technology, basically. Parties utilize technology for these hearings, or the ODR platforms utilize technology for these hearings, such that parties or the disputing parties or the disputants do not necessarily have to sit together for the resolution of this dispute. They can be done online as we speak like this. So once the hearing is conducted, once the claim is assigned to an independent arbiter, hearing is conducted, and an independent or a binding decision is awarded by the independent arbiter. After the binding decision is awarded by the independent arbiter, such binding decision can be enforced in court. They can be enforced in court same way that court judgments are being enforced. Now, what are some common disputes being faced by some tech startups? We have a host of disputes that are usually being faced by tech startups, or disputes that are typical of tech startups because they're just starting. So there are certain disputes that comes with that initial gestational period. One of such disputes is co-founder disagreements. We have a situation whereby co-founders disagree as to equity. We have disagreement as to co-founders basically having a dispute as to roles that they have been assigned within the organization. So these are some kind of disputes that come with tech startups. We also have intellectual property conflict, where tech startups are being sued, or tech startups suing another organization for infringement of their intellectual rights. We can have cases of breach of or maybe copyright, for instance. That's a very good example of some intellectual property conflicts that tech startups face at their initial period. We also have client payment issues, as is typical of platforms like eBay. When payment becomes issue, we have a situation where customers on the platform make payment for a certain goods and they do not get it. So what are the method of dispute resolution? What leeway or what avenue do disputants have in such situation? So we also have vendor contractual disputes, where parties enter, or a tech startup basically enters into an agreement or a contractual agreement with another entity, and then disputes arise based on the obligations of the parties. So these are examples of disputes that necessarily comes with tech startups, and also employee disputes. We have tech startups employ or have a couple of employees. Many of them may not necessarily have a lot of or a large employee strength at the initial period, but of course they need some employees to be able to kickstart their operation. So disputes also arise between the company and some of these employees. These are some typical kind of disputes that tech startups face, and how are these disputes being resolved? Now, the question that we then begin to ask ourselves is, okay, we've discussed what ODR means. We've discussed how it works. We've talked about the typical kind of disputes that tech startups face at this initial period when they're just kickstarted. Now, the question that we then begin to ask ourselves is, why is ODR the most appropriate method of dispute resolution for tech startups? Now that we've identified all the disputes that they face, why is it most appropriate for them? Why not the conventional courts? Why are we advocating for the use of ODR for the resolution of this kind of dispute? And the first point that necessarily comes to mind, like I said earlier, is the court efficiency that comes with the resolution of dispute on ODR platforms. You don't necessarily, take for instance, when a tech startup in Nigeria enters into an agreement with another organization in the United States. Founders, when a dispute arises as to certain obligation of the parties within the agreement, founders of the tech startup in Nigeria do not necessarily need to fly to the United States for the resolution of the dispute. They don't necessarily need to fly to the United States to negotiate. They don't necessarily need to fly to the United States for a mediation hearing. They also do not need to fly to the United States for an arbitration hearing. All they need to do is to jump on the ODR platform that has been set up by the ODR ODR platform itself, and then online proceedings can be heard. Evidence can be taken online. We have had ODR platforms taking evidence online through blockchains. So evidence is taken online, and the award is also, the binding award is also made online. So parties do not necessarily need to accumulate the cost of coming to the United States. This cost would also trickle down to the eventual or to the overall cost of running the tech startup. So that's the first point, that resolving disputes via ODR platforms is cost efficient. The next point is they have faster resolutions. Like I said earlier, resolution of disputes via our conventional court systems are riddled with a lot of backlogs. We have a lot of backlogs in our court, and ODR affords us that leeway for the speedy resolution of our disputes. We don't necessarily have to go join the backlog of cases in our court. All we can do is decide on what ODR platform to use, initiate our case, and then we have a third-party arbiter assigned to it who is going to hear it very speedily. And the award is also made very speedily because, it's basically parties driven. As long as parties are committed to the hearing, then they are good. The award can be made very swiftly. And like I said earlier also, the remote access. We don't necessarily have to geolocate for our hearing. This is something that comes with our traditional conventional court systems. We have to geolocate. We have to sit together in the same room before some of these disputes can be resolved. ODR affords us that platform to sit within the comfort of our homes for the resolution of our disputes. Confidential and flexible. Yeah. ODR resolving disputes, or tech startups resolving their disputes via ODR platforms, afford them that confidentiality that most tech startups crave for at their initial stage. Because some tech startups actually deal with some information. They are based off certain ideas that they do not want public access to yet. Some tech startups have a lot of confidential information that they don't want to be outside there. So, in fact, sometimes disputes may arise as to this confidential information that they do not want to be outside. So, when these disputes arise, and then you're asking the tech startup or the startup to go to a conventional court where parties or the public will basically have access to the court record. So ODR affords parties that platform where their confidential information stays confidential within the parties, and the third party arbiter who is basically helping with the resolution of the dispute, or who is facilitating the resolution of the dispute as the case may be. Now, how startups are using ODR. Let us talk about how startups utilize ODR forums, or how they're using ODR. So many tech startups are now beginning to utilize, are now beginning to incorporate directly into their customer service systems ODR ODR tools. Yeah, ODR tools, so to speak. We have, and I mentioned earlier also, we have a platform like eBay that has incorporated ODR tools into its software. So when you buy things on eBay, for instance, you have and you have a dispute with the company, you have a dispute with the platform. The dispute can also be submitted to resolution within the platform itself. You don't necessarily have to go outside the platform before you can resolve your dispute. So we now have a case of tech startups actually incorporating ODR tools. They have AI tools that they're now incorporating into their systems. So everything stays within the system. You don't necessarily have to go out. So you have a system whereby the subject of the dispute happens on the system, and also the resolution of the dispute happen on the system. The enforcement of the awards that is being gotten also happens on the system. So this is how most tech startups are now incorporating ODR tools into their dispute resolution mechanism. Because the truth is, disputes are bound to arise. Anywhere we have obligations or rights, then disputes are bound to arise. So when we have contractual obligations, parties will always claim rights and certain obligations. And when one party is claiming rights, the other party is claiming obligations, then they are bound to be disagreements. They are bound to be disputes. So then resolution has to be in place. So this is what some of these platforms have done, that, okay, since disputes are inevitable, then we have to utilize, or we have to put in place mechanisms that would ensure that our disputes with some customers are utilized promptly and without so much hassle for our users. Now, we've talked about this earlier. So ODR as a growth and investor confidence tool. When we talk about tech startups, one thing that is typical of tech startup is that they want to scale. They want to make profits. They want to grow. Then when disputes arise, dispute has the potential of killing startups if not well managed. So ODR affords tech startups that opportunity to grow and instill investor confidence. Let's assume a situation whereby we have an entity, or someone sets up an organization or a startup basically, and then you are dealing with people's confidential information. For you, or for people to have confidence in giving you their confidential information, those category of people must also be assured that when disputes arise, when you misappropriate their confidential information, then they have a platform where they can easily ventilate their grievance. Not that they would go join the backlog of cases already in court and then initiate a process that will take years before its resolution. They need to know, you need to instill confidence in them that once a dispute arises, there is a ready-made or already baked platform where they can easily submit their claim and have their dispute resolved with the speed of light or very swiftly. So ODR platforms or incorporation of ODR tools in tech startups or in the operation of tech startups make them grow and also instills investor confidence in those startups. So when the tech startup grows and when there's a lot of investor confidence in their products, then they are able to scale. They are able to have a huge turnover within time. Now, let us also talk about the seamless integration with tech tools. We talked about earlier that ODR, for resolution of disputes via ODR, there are certain tech tools that need to be in place. We have to be able to set up a platform, more like our courts. Let us have the example of our conventional court system. There are certain tools that the court uses for the resolution of disputes. There must be a courtroom. There must be a court clerk. There must be, where lawyers will sit. There must be a filing system. We have our courts having a registry. So all of these tools are also embedded within the ODR space for ODR platforms to hit, to be efficient, so to speak. For ODR platforms to be efficient, these tools also need to be in place. For instance, now we are communicating via Zoom. This is a very good example of a tool that ODR platforms can use, a proper filing system. ODR platforms need to be able to integrate a proper filing system such that an aggrieved party is easily able to initiate the claim within the comfort of their homes. You don't have to go outside your house, or you don't have to visit any office before you can initiate a claim if you are aggrieved. What you can do is log onto the system and initiate the claim. So for ODR platforms to be properly efficient, these tools need to be in place. And some of these tools are AI driven. As technology continues to grow, some of these tools also continue to grow. So for ODR platforms to be able to be efficient, these tools need to be in place, and then parties need to be able to interact and interface with them very seamless. So that is one hallmark of the integration of the tech tools into the resolution of dispute via ODR platforms. So what is the future of ODR within the startup culture? We've talked a lot about what ODR means for startups. We've talked about why it is important for ODR platforms to utilize ODR, for startups to utilize ODR platforms. And now, what is the future of ODR within the startup culture? Now, the first thing that we must talk about is the fact that AI-driven resolutions. The future of ODR is AI-driven. With the advancement in technology, we'll find a situation, or would arrive at a situation whereby disputes are being driven by AI tools, such that we would dispense with the use of humans. And that is happening already. When we look at the resolution of disputes within some within the virtual world, for instance, we talk about the resolution of disputes within platforms or within virtual systems like the metaverse, right? This is an example, or this is a good example of a place where ODR is being utilized, right? You have dispute between avatars that is being resolved by avatars, right? So this is the future of ODR, whereby human beings will be completely dispensed with. So we won't even have the issue of, this particular ODR judge or this particular ODR magistrate is saddled with a lot of cases right now. I won't be able to hear you. We have a situation whereby AI tools are being used for the resolution of these disputes. AI tools are being used or are being utilized in the process of initiating. AI tools are being utilized in the process of hearing evidence or hearing the parties. And also AI tools are being utilized in the process of awarding binding judgments for the parties. So that is the future of ODR that we crave for. That is the future of ODR that we anticipate in a couple of years. And also we have the ODR and ESG. So ODR must also accord with ethical business practice. As much as we want the ODR space, or we want some of these ODR platforms to be AI driven, to be technology driven, then they must also accord with ethical business practice. Now, sorry, I thought someone was trying to make a statement. Okay. Now, so what should tech startups do? What should tech startups do now that we've talked about the advantages of ODR for them? What should they do? How can they proceed? Now, the first thing that tech startups need to do, because ODR is basically based on the volition of parties. You can't force parties to submit themselves to the jurisdiction of the ODR court. So what tech startups need to do is that they need to include ODR clauses in the smart contracts, because some of these contracts are basically click and enter. So you click and submit to the jurisdiction. So they need to start including ODR clauses in their contracts, because in such way, or by so doing, they are able to they are able to force the other party or get the other party. I shouldn't use the word force because it has to be by volition. So they are able to get the other party to submit themselves to the jurisdiction of the ODR court. And startups also need to choose the right platform for their industry. Where tech startups or a situation whereby a tech startup does not have that clout or does not have the infrastructure to develop or build ODR platforms for themselves, then they must be forthcoming and they must be ahead in terms of picking the right platforms that litigants or aggrieved parties are able to submit their disputes to within their platform or when they have issues with their platform. And of course, education. Education is key. For any tech tool, education is very important. Parties need to be able to speak to, or tech startups basically need to familiarize themselves with ADR tools. They need to familiarize themselves with ADR platforms. And of course, they need to familiarize themselves with the resolution that comes with with ODR. Now, I'll conclude by saying that as we have seen today, ODR is not just a legal tool. It is a strategic advantage for tech startups. It aligns perfectly with the values of innovation, speed, and efficiency that define the startup ecosystem. Whether it's resolving co-founder disagreements, client issues, or vendor disputes, ODR offers a smarter, faster, and more scalable way to protect your business and maintain focus on growth. In a world where time is currency and reputation is everything, having a system like ODR strategy is not optional. It is essential. I encourage you to start thinking proactively about how to embed ODR into your contracts, your culture, and your operations. Thank you for your time. And I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you. Anyone has any questions?
No, I'll speak up. I don't have any real questions. I mean, I certainly agree that ODR or in various forms is very useful for actually most corporations, not even tech startups. People waste a lot of time on disputes when really resolving disputes is just a group decision and between two or more parties. So when we built our platform for this stuff, Next Level, maybe 2 years ago is when we introduced AI into the mediation process. But there are other tools from game theory like adjusted winner algorithm. There are various decision methodologies that help people resolve disputes. But the most recent thing we added was visualization of disputes. Part of the problem in ODR, like most of society now, is people aren't really present anymore. They're distracted by other kinds of technologies. And so when you're online, the statistics show that roughly 85% of people aren't paying attention, or they're distracted. They're looking at their cell phone, they're looking at something else. And the average attention span, at least in the US, has gone down to roughly 45 seconds. And people are now being trained on 15-second TikTok videos. And if it takes longer than 15 seconds, they scroll by it. And so you need other technologies to present the big picture of the dispute and helping clients and people understand the context of the dispute and how it might be resolved. And so I agree 100% on ODR, but there are lots of technologies that can be added in to make it 100% more effective. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you too. Yeah. Just like I said earlier, the future of ODR is actually the incorporation of AI tools. So as technology also advances, I'm sure that certain tools will also be invented that will complement the tools that we already have on the ground and the extant tools that we have right now. So yeah, absolutely. The point is spot on. And yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, and actually, yeah. I mean, I've showed our platform before, over almost 2 years ago, I think. And so, but I think the newest stuff we've added for complex visualization, changing documents into a mind map, for instance, or flowcharts automatically so that people can see the cause and effect, has helped quite a bit in understanding the dispute. from both sides. So I think this is a good direction to go in. So.
Right.
Thank you, Mubarak, for that wonderful presentation. I think listening to you, I've kind of now gotten a clearer picture of what ODR is, because like you said, it's a pretty new technology, and I know that even mediation and ADR is becoming, it's not really, the society has not really embraced it. So this is the beginning of all this. My question is, do you have a certain maybe software that you'd recommend, or how do you approach it if you are a business person, you are a mediator? I'm a mediator here in Texas, and let's say I want to embrace this thing. How do I start? By maybe teaching people, or maybe advertising? Do you, or are there software you can recommend that probably would be the best way to start?
Yeah, thank you so much for your question. Yeah, just like you said, ADR is still a developing field. It develops every day, and it's really gaining traction. Regarding the software, there are a couple of softwares, but I don't think I will be able to recommend one particularly that you can utilize for the resolution of dispute. But one thing I would just say that is key is ODR, or resolution of your dispute via ODR tools, does not necessarily mean that you have to use the software. It could be same way we are interacting right now. It could be done via Zoom. So if you have a dispute with someone, both of you can agree that you want to appoint a mediator or a negotiator who can help you with the resolution, who can help facilitate the resolution of the dispute. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the software route where you only submit your claim and the dispute, the platform takes it over from there. The disputing parties can take it amongst themselves, whereby they appoint an independent arbiter, they set up a platform like this for the resolution and for the hearing, and then the independent arbiter awards a binding decision. That is also ODR. But if you want to go the software route, whereby you submit it to a platform, there are a couple of platforms that you can use. And just like I said earlier, platforms like Modria afford you the opportunity to submit your claim to them. I also know of another platform with one of my mentors, basically in Ohio, ODR Notable. It has also a software that is being used for the resolution of disputes, where parties basically just submit their dispute to the platform and then they take it up from there. So there are a lot of softwares, a lot of tools that are now being developed by ODR practitioners, where parties can basically just go to more like a court system, where you just file and then they take it over from there for you. But just like I said earlier, it doesn't necessarily have to be submitted to a platform. It can also be done via a platform like this, where parties just discuss via Zoom or even phone. Yeah, phone too. It doesn't necessarily have to be platform driven.
Well, I would shamelessly recommend our software at nextlevelmediation.com.
That's what I was going to say, Bob. Bob has, to the question of Daniel, Bob has built a very interesting platform.
Yeah, it's focused to help and assist mediators with a variety of AI and decision science tools to help resolve disputes.
I think I would also want to add to Daniel's question about resolving disputes with ODR. And if you look back to the presentations that we've had, ODR is not necessarily one tool, one platform. It's that entire stretch of using technology to make dispute resolution more efficient. And that's why Mubarak also mentioned parties are agreeing to use Zoom, for instance, for a mediation. So even in you having pre-hearings in an arbitration process online or virtually, that is still ODR. Sending out an email is still ODR. So ODR is basically just using technology. Of course, you get to a different level where you get to next level mediation. And I was going to say, Robert, we're going to have you come back soon, because I know you've done a lot more on next level from the last time you were here with us, because I was at the ICODA member session where you presented what you had done. So ODR is really not all the time that high end of AI and machine learning or algorithms. It's things as basic as using your email, using a meeting app, just generally using technology to make dispute resolution more efficient, because that's really what AI does. And based on even the presentation we've had today, it's about getting things done faster, more efficiently, more cost efficient, and of course, not waiting on having to be in another geographic location before you can actually get disputes resolved. So that would be my answer to you, Daniel. Of course, there's so many platforms, just like Mirez and Robert have said, but then basically it's just you finding those technologies. It can be even 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them that you use for one process, but the end result, for instance, if I think some of us had some training on Robert's platform, and you would find out that it's not necessarily that you have to use it from top to beginning, but it helps you to generate questions. It helps to give risk analysis and all of that. And there's so many other platforms like that that would actually brought people to present on this platform. I think Mirez wants to say something.
Yes, actually, I slightly differ from what you said, Morenike, and I do not think that using an email means necessarily ODR. And the reason for which I'm saying that is that at the beginning of the lockdown, I saw flourishing on the internet ODR experts just because they were using Zoom, because they were not enabled to travel because of the lockdown. I'm sorry, but this is not ODR. It's using a platform, it's using technology, but you can't claim yourself to be an ODR expert because it goes farther than that. And platforms are indispensable. Of course, you can use, of course, you can go on a different platform, or you can do away with platforms and you can negotiate through emails and so on. But this is not ODR, not in my view. I'm happy to hear also about Robert's view, but for me, it's a bit like what Eaton Katz defined over 20 years ago, the fourth party. So that means the technology that comes into and is a party between, in addition, sorry, to the parties, the lawyers and the arbitrators, the mediators, whoever is involved. So that technology comes into play and has its part to play. It's not just a platform, but like eBay, as mentioned by Mubarak, but eBay is still not, I would say, yeah, I mean, it's a list of sort of disputes that you encounter and offering a list of ways to resolve them. So it's also a technology used. So I don't think that emails, at least using emails or Zoom, people can claim to use it to be ODR, to be using ODR.
But Mirez, you realize that most of the platforms still have email notifications as part of the process. So when I say email, I don't mean using just email, because even when you are on a platform, what you realize is that the notifications will still come by email, even the automated platforms.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true.
So it's really not just, so when I say ODR is using, I don't mean, and that's why I said there's so many things you can use, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's a whole process. That you use. It's not just the email. So it's just to like break it down to him and explain to him that so when he's looking to do ODR, he's not looking to do only the AI enabled platforms. He doesn't need to get that far, just to make it a bit simpler for him.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. And an additional comment about education. I think that Dan Rainey had proposed to do trainings online, and we've spoken about it on iCoder, Morenike. So there are ways to assist practitioners and assist users to get online and see presentations like Robert also made online. So there are ways to educate people. The problem that I wanted to raise is actually, we've been around for 30 years now. So Daniel, this is a comment to you and also to Mubarak. We've been around for 30 years. Most of us have built platforms. I have built 2 of them. Nothing has worked. Why? Because unfortunately, the people investing in building those platforms have ceased to continue in putting the necessary budget to complete the development, simply because they were expecting that it generates income in a very short period of time. This is not possible. The second problem is that, unfortunately, it is not on the agenda of big organizations or even the courts. Like, for instance, in France, we had a platform to resolve disputes up to 5,000 euros. They built it and then they threw it to the garbage, like many other platforms, simply because it wasn't on the agenda of the chair of the court that has come into place. So it's constant problems of getting the message out to the stakeholders on the level of the governments, of the courts, of those who invest money into the platforms. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree.
Thank you,
I
Miriam.
mean,
Go on,
you
go
know,
on, go on, Robert. Sorry.
yeah, I mean, the last couple of decades, we've used technology to create more disputes than solve them, right? And so the problem is, one of the big problems is, as we move to online dispute resolution, I think what's happened so far is we've only concentrated on the O part of ODR, which means you just got yourself online, whether you sent emails or you did video conferencing, but there's a lot more to it. And part of the problem is, over the last couple decades, or at least the last decade, the population has changed. This is not the same population that was 20 or 30 years ago. People are distracted, their attention span's gone down. You can't just assume that you take whatever you did face to face in a physical setting and just move it online and expect it to work anymore. It's not going to work. And so that's one of the reasons we kept developing it, to account for the lack of attention span now of the general population. And if you look at all the training for mediation, you see the same problem. People are assuming the population is the same as it was in 1980. It's not. And so there's other tools you need to integrate into your systems if you want them to be effective. So.
Thank you very much, Robert. And Mubarak, I had a question for you that I put on the chat, and I said, do you think tech startups might have a challenge providing a human touch when they leverage on technology and ODR?
Sorry, I didn't get a question. Sorry.
Do you think tech startups might have a challenge providing a human touch when they leverage on technology and ODR? I just wanted your view on that. You are muted. You're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, I thought I actually do not think they should have so much of a challenge, because I mean, these tools still actually need the human touch for them to be able to scale properly, for us to be able to utilize them properly. They are not operating at a level where they can't operate by themselves yet. They still need some form of human interaction for them to be able to be properly utilized. So I don't think the human touch is going to be dispensed with, at least for now. Maybe in future, yeah. I mean, that's part of what I discussed earlier, that we are going to get to a situation whereby the human touch of it is going to be completely dispensed with. But for now, yeah, we can't dispense with the human touch. We still have We still need the human contact part of it for these tools to be properly utilized. Yeah. And then, sorry, Robert, yeah, I'm not sure. Were you at Montreal in 2023? The ODR forum. I think you're muted.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was asking if you were at Montreal in Canada in 2023.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, I think we met. We did meet.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a small group, really.
Yeah.
Which is it? Yeah.
I recall.
If you know those of them who have been in the space in the last 30 years, just like Mirez said, Mirez, Colin, Ethan Cash, Jeff Presley, Leah Wing, Robert's platform is just splendid, and I know he's come back to ICODA, and we're going to ask him to come back to the African Network to just
Sure.
a bit of what more he's done. He's done fantastic work.
I'm going to show some stuff at ODR 25, and
yeah, I'll be there. I'm
month.
also speaking, so I'm sure I'll see you, Robert. I'm also speaking, so I'll be in London.
Okay, great.
Okay, so, well, we usually don't spend more than an hour, so I'm just going to ask Mirez to do us the honors to round this off by thanking our guests, speaker, and saying thank you to everyone that has come in today.
So thank you very much, Mubarak, for your presentation, which was a very good summary of actually where we are and all the benefits of using ODR. We know that we still have a long way to go to convince organizations and users to use ODR, because it is the way forward. And without doing away with the human aspect, I'm completely against doing away with the human the human aspect, because I think that whatever AI AI develops, it can never replace a human being, and I hope it will not. So thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you very much, Robert, for reminding us also of some aspects we need to take into consideration. Thank you, Daniel, for your question. And thank you, Morenike, for continuing this program, which is always very interesting. So hope to see you. I will not be in London, very unfortunately. I will miss you all. And but I hope that we will see each other again soon. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, everyone, for attending this insightful ODR session. I hope you all have the rest of a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
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 Bye.